So, Merry Christmas, Rufus. It's about that time of year, and thought maybe we could talk about some of the things that have changed. I know it's your business Christmas, basically, so figured it would be timely for us to kind of talk about things like decorations. Do you remember how the string lights were different and how tinsel was different, and now there's like all these inflatable Santas
Mhm.
and
Well,
that kind of stuff,
tinsel hasn't really changed that much since the 80s. It's changed from like when we were kids, like up until like the early to mid 70s, tinsel was actually made out of a lead foil. So it hung nice. It wasn't like the Mylar stuff we have now that would build up the static and you walk by the tree and all the icicles are following you. They were actually still making the lead stuff in Germany up until maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And the reason they stopped making it in Germany, it had nothing to do with lead or, health or safety or anything like that. And it boiled down to the fact that, there was one rolling mill left that made the raw materials. It made the foil, because the way that tinsel was made, the companies would get like the sheet, like the lead foil in sheets. And then it would go through and then the tinsel factories would run it through a cutter and it would just, then the little thin strips would pop out. And, what happened was the guy that owned the last remaining rolling mill in Germany, he retired, and basically his son didn't really want anything to do with the business. Well, he wanted it to do with the business, but he didn't want to bother with the tinsel end of it. He felt that the floor space could be, better used for something more lucrative. So basically, because one kid has a bug up his butt and he doesn't want to do it, 300-year tradition dies.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember how big the lights were back in the day? I remember my dad going up and putting strings on the house that had almost full-size light bulbs. Now you get these little LED lights.
C9s. They were about that big. There was C9, which was about that big, which I still use. And then there's the C7s were the little, remember the colored, there was light bulbs. So we used to put those on the trees inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those I still use too. And it's funny because, some people are like, oh, the amount of electric. Yeah. I'm like, it's once a year. It's only a month. It's I think the grid and the environment can handle my lights.
Yeah. Funny when you see the people who keep them on all year. You're driving by in July and they've got the
thing that has really changed since the 80s is just the whole disposable nature of the holiday.
Yeah.
You don't see anybody. I mean, with the old lead tinsel, I don't know if, your grandparents or your parents did it. Some of the old timers, they used to take the tinsel back off the tree and flatten it and save it for next year.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Some of them used to do that. Lights, it's now it's you got these cheap ass light sets coming in from China. People don't want to bother. It's too much of trouble for them to, take them off the tree, and then, you got to loop it and whatever. And then inevitably it always gets tangled up by the following, that was the other part of setting up the tree when I was a kid was, listen to my old man bitch and swear when he's untangling the lights. There's a lot of entertainment value in that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's almost like, in A Christmas Story, Gene Shepard's old man.
Yes, exactly. I love that you can't really hear what he's saying. You just hear frickin' black, there's cursing going on, but.
Yep, was the thing. It was, anytime it's something went wrong, you'd hear my old man, horse shit. And that was this. He never said bullshit. It was always, horse shit. You'd hear him say that. And it's my mom would be it's time for you guys to go somewhere.
Go to bed or whatever,
what's that? Now you got these light sets, that from China or whatever. It's whoever, even when we were kids, I mean, even adjusting for inflation, like, yeah, when we were kids, it's like if you took today's prices and marked them up to what they were 40 years ago, it's still cheap. And, at that price, nobody wants to bother. They just like, haul it out. It's like, I think I mentioned once before, there's like a lady up the street from us. This year, it's always before New Year's. It's like, you're going to see her. She's going to haul the tree out to the curb. The tinsel's still on it. The lights are still on it. The ornaments are still on
God,
it.
it's like a murder was committed, right? They dump them in the forest.
Shove the tree up the chimney. And she's like, oh, well, it's like, because these ornaments, they don't, it's going to be a whole theme, and it's going to be a different theme next year. It's like, here's a theme, Christmas.
When we were young, you used to have a real tree, right? And boy, those things got really dried out. And then they started doing these public service announcements like, this is what happens when you light a tree on fire. And you just saw the thing go up in flames like it was some sort of accelerant that had been poured on it or something like that. And I started thinking to myself, I'm usually keeping that tree pretty close to my fire, and maybe I should just get a fake tree. And we did that a couple of years ago. And now they have good trees good fake trees that look.
I have a fake tree too.
It just makes sense, I think, at this point.
Well, you know me. It's like, you know what I go through every year with the Christmas rush. And it's just funny because, I go to some of these trade shows and some of my customers are like, oh, your house must be gorgeous. But, come
yes,
Christmas.
the show place.
And I'm like, are you out of your mind? It's like, I'm not even putting it. Well, this is also because of the other stuff that's going on in my life. But, it's like, I'm not even putting up a tree this year. It's like, it's like my house is like just the total Grinch place. It's like, I got a wreath on the door. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I'm not doing the lights. I'm not doing, because again, it's like, people have this notion that, because Christmas is my line of work, that like, I must have like, it's
Christmas Wonderland every year.
Hell of a train set. It's like, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, it's like what, in my spare time?
Well, let me ask you this. You sell like premium Christmas stuff that kind of distinguishes, and we're not like plugging you here or whatever, but maybe I'll put a link to the business below. But the reality is people who come to you, they're looking for the hand-blown German thing, right? That is the totally opposite end of the spectrum of the Walmart shopper who's like going to chuck it on, it's a cancer on January 1st or whatever. So what is that client like? I mean, what is that guy like who goes nutso on Christmas and spares no expense?
That market segment's starting to age out now. It's, the millennials, they don't want anything to do, again, it's like, they're not into like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like material possession. They want to live a minimalist lifestyle.
Or live out of it.
They don't want all this extra baggage. And it's funny because when you think about like, when we were kids, you talk like every year, it's like, you're coming up in the basement, you got to haul up all the boxes of ornaments and the boxes of lights and the
right back up.
And then it's like, somebody in the family would die, it's like you'd have like some great aunt that would die. And then somehow all of her Christmas shit ends, more boxes.
Right. The Christmas Village thing, right? I mean, it's like, how do you just chuck that when somebody dies and it's this old, beautiful thing they spent their life accumulating, very ornate? You just gonna like put that by the curb? I don't know, Let me ask you this, Rufus. Have you ever had a Christmas club? Do you remember them?
No, I never.
You never did a Christmas club? Every week, like my mom, and during the year, my mom would have me put $2.
Not necessarily.
Every week you would put in a like $1, $2, and at the end of the year, for an 8-year-old to have $100 or so in the 1979 or so.
Oh yeah, it was dangerous.
Like that was pretty good. You know what I mean? And it taught you savings along the way. I mean, those days are long gone. You want something, you hit up Amazon with your credit card that's on file. But it was a nice little thing. You know what I mean? To kind of like, I remember going there and having that satisfaction of seeing my passbook with another $2 in it now.
They'd give you like a little Santa Claus bank or something.
Yeah, right. Oh, back in the day, they'd give you a toaster if you opened an account because the interest rates were 17% or whatever. And
people are complaining about that. Now you look and it's like, interest rates on credit cards are like, like 25. I mean, some of them are like just criminal now. It's like, I don't know how.
Right. You look in the fine print, it's like we break legs, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so anyway, so going back to the thing, what really changed though was, the flood of cheap imports from China.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go to some of these trade shows and it's just weird because I'll be like hanging around for like, all week at some, like at the Chicago Merchandise Mart. There's a big show that I used to do. And I'd spend all week there just milling around my booth. And you're listening to the buyers as they go by. And it's like the bulk of them, they're all grumbling about how it's like everything's coming in from China. So then you're like, hey, look, here's the real deal. Made in Germany.
It's like, Germany, the US, my factory.
It's like, I'm good friends with them. Hell, look, here's the stuff I make, made in the United States. Yeah. And then it's like,
you look at and it's handcrafted. It's like a guy touched it instead of they push the button on the machine. With the thing with consumer preferences too, like it used to be you went to the mall, right? You'd go and you'd shop and you'd get something. There was a deadline. Now it's like you order something on Amazon. It shows up the next day. It's in the box. You hide it from the kids. I wonder to what degree that's changed the, consumer
that has changed a lot. Yeah. It's funny because, we were talking about a couple episodes ago. I think it was when we were discussing all the stores that went under. Like Sears. Sears used to be like Christmas Central, the Wish book, that was the highlight of the kid year. When that fat catalog showed up, it was like,
yeah, absolutely.
Now it's like, then if there was ever Sears, like you were saying with Crazy Eddie, the textbook, they teach in business school about auditing, and Sears should be like the textbook example of a company that blew it.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had a good run. What were they, like 140 years or something?
Well, think about it though. In terms of transitioning to the web.
Yeah, they blew it. Yeah, agreed.
It was Sears.
Yeah, that's true. If they started early, but they were like all about service, right? The guy would tell you about the part on the lawnmower, and like they'd get involved and they'd bring the stuff out to the car for you. Like, how do you do that in today's like micro penny profit margin world? You know?
And two is, which I notice now, it's like what Amazon's doing now is, Amazon, they're partnering with like Kohl's, I think it is, where now it's like, if you don't want the package delivered at home, they'll send it to Kohl's, and then you go to Kohl's to pick up the package.
Yeah, right. Or your neighbors.
Do you remember going to Sears with your mother? That's like you had to go to the catalog desk because your order came in, and it's the same.
Yeah, going back, right? One step forward, two steps back. Hey, do you remember Cabbage Patch Kids? Like that was like, you're never going to have that again. It was back in the 80s. There was this hot gift one year called a Cabbage Patch Kid. Ugly little doll, but everybody had to have one. And like people were coming to fisticuffs and having Donnybrooks and fights and like strangulations in the mall because of this little gift.
So the one thing that has definitely changed.
Now you just stay at home and order it on Amazon.
Well, if you want to talk about just like, retail and avoid the whole Amazon thing, what has definitely changed was that whole Black Friday mentality.
Yeah.
Not it's like when,
set them loose, set the consumers loose and let them kill each other in a melee.
As crap as I did when I was a kid. But it's like, unless I just don't remember it, it just seems to me that like, you didn't see the stores would close for Thanksgiving. And then the thing about like, Friday after Thanksgiving was that's when the stores threw the doors open and everything was decorated.
Yeah. Well, remember Sundays being closed?
It was like, early Black Friday, pre-Black Friday. Black Friday now starts like right after Halloween. And I could go, I know somewhere I have it. I should send it to you. There was a picture I took in like, it was either Walmart or Home Depot where you could see like the lawnmowers and the summer stuff, the back to school stuff, Halloween, and then you could see them. They start like unpacking the Christmas shit. It's like,
Well, back in the day too, like the gifts were a lot more physical. You'd get a doll or a Rubik's Cube or something. Now it's like 98%, I would imagine, are going to be like some kind of electronics gift, you know?
Or even like gift cards. They did not exist.
Yeah.
It was like,
I don't even care about thinking of you or your interests, but I want you to have a good time. So take this card and go get something yourself, punk.
Well, hey, I'm doing that with my wife this year. It's like,
well, you know.
It's like, I mean, it seems like the past couple of years, you haven't been really thrilled with anything I got. It's like, you're fine, whatever. Impersonal. I'm thinking about you, whatever. It's like,
remember watching Christmas stories like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and that kind of stuff?
It's one of my favorite movies, actually.
So funny, man. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, A Christmas Story, the Gene Shepard movie, that I can relate to.
You gotta love that. Yeah, every single year. I just went to see It's a Wonderful Life on the big screen, and that was like phenomenal, man. You pull that movie out every year.
That conversation. I never saw that movie from start to finish.
You got to see it on the big screen, man. We're lucky enough to have a little theater here that shows some of the old movies, and I've seen like African Queen on the big screen, and it's a different experience. It really is.
Oh yeah, it's a total. Even just being in, with a large group of people, it's like there's that camaraderie that you just don't get. It's
yes, and when you have to pay attention.
You're sitting there in the living room watching this with your wife, and you try to say something, and she's like, "Shut up, I'm listening."
Yes, funny. Exactly right. And when we went, my wife Shanti was like, "Well, hey, I don't even remember seeing this part of the movie." And it's because exactly that. You get up, you go get your snack, you go to the bathroom, you miss this piece, you miss that piece, you tune in when you want, you check your phone. But if you're sitting in the theater with a chair, it's like you're staring at the screen from start to finish, and the whole thing is a one comprehensive experience.
Again, going to touch on what we were talking about in another episode, that was also one of the great parts about, that I loved about fatherhood was just sitting there and watching my kid see these things for the first time.
Yeah, that was great, man.
Iggy Preisner, remember that one?
A Christmas Story the first time with your kids?
Claymation puppety things with Rudolph and
right, those stories. Heat Miser, I'm Mr. Heat Miser.
And it was just funny because it's I'd be sitting there in my recliner and he'd be in my lap and we'd both have our hot cocoa and our plate of cookies, and my wife walks in and she's like, I don't know who's having more fun, you or him.
Yeah, well, that's the fun, man. The joy of turning them on to stuff. Now, of course, it's like they don't want to know. If I recommend something, that means it must suck.
Yeah. It's like I spent most of the 80s trying to avoid the 80s because I was in love with the 50s at the time.
What about
and it's like, I said to her, all I can tell you is that the music was better, the girls were cuter, and people used to smoke a lot more.
What about Christmas cards? You remember those? Like people would send out actual physical Christmas cards, and if you didn't do it, it was like a shame on your family for, now it's like if I get 5-10 Christmas cards a year, I'm kind of shocked when I get them. I'm like, who's still doing this? I'm surprised it's not like some e-Christmas card.
I remember my mother, it's like, they have they'd have to punch the hole in every Christmas card. They'd tie it to the spindles of the stairs going down, with a little ribbon.
Right,
and there's like this
put them up or on the fridge or something.
I remember, my mother sitting there at the kitchen table, making out the Christmas cards and asking my father, it's like, is this one still alive? Well, and it's like, I'm not sending a Christmas card to your cousin Leonard. And he's like, he died 3 years ago. And my mother's like, well, that'll explain why we haven't gotten a card. Sending cards to these people that I don't even know if they're living or dead. It's like they're just these little fringe players, but I gotta send them something.
Well, some, back in the day too, they would do this annual letter to catch you up. There was no phone, there was no texting. It was like you didn't know they were like you say alive or dead, right? So basically what you would do is you type this little letter like, Johnny had a good year and the dog died and blah, 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 right? And then,
Frit got a promotion.
Right, all that kind of stuff. You jam into the annual letter. You don't see that.
In some ways, it seems like when we were kids, people used to decorate more. But I think the it's, the decorations kind of have like more meaning because, again, they were handed down year in year. It was like a tradition where it's like, got to bring up like, the stuffed Santa Claus or whatever, and it's like, you had like, the same, like, the same ornaments, and it was kind of like unpacking the box. It was almost like, meeting an old friend, it's like, there's the little elf that sits on the branches, and we didn't do that elf on the shelf thing. I never heard of that. Yeah, we never heard of that.
That was
it's a whole tradition. It's like,
that was a later tradition. Yeah, absolutely. But I'll tell you, speaking of traditions, how about the old Santa experience where you'd go to the mall, you'd sit on his lap? Now I'm sure that's like a virtual Santa experience or something,
I can't, I know our son, although that was like the local church always had like a real, honest to God Santa thing. To get to the Santa, you'd have to get me in a mall. You know me, it's like I avoid malls like the plague. I'm not really like a crowd person. After our son was born and when he got really fun, like when he was 4, 5, whatever. And I was saying to my wife once, it's like, yeah, maybe I'll take him over to the mall. And she's like, if you're looking to capture his childhood experience, you're kidding yourself. It's not like it was when you were, it's like a lot of them, like that. Even the malls don't decorate like they used to because it's just too expensive. You got to pay people. Usually that stuff is done at night. So now it's like overtime with night differential. I'm sure insurance plays some kind of role in that too. Yeah, you're walking through the mall and it's like, a big ball drops and hits somebody on the head.
It's a liability or whatever. Yeah. Well, I'm sure charity has changed too. I'm sure charity has changed as well, right? Because like it used to be, you'd see a guy out there ringing the bell with the bucket or whatever. Now it's probably like you submit your you're on your credit card, you submit it and you immediately get a receipt for your taxes.
This was when my son was like a little peanut. Must have been like 5 or 6. And it was funny because you go to the supermarket, and there's like the old bag with the Salvation Army, with the cape and the hat, ringing the bell or whatever.
And doing the whole thing.
And it's like, he's like, do you have any money? Yeah, it's like, I hold out my hand and it's like, I just put my hand in my pocket, I hold it out, and he takes a couple quarters and he throws them in the pot and, they're like, oh, thank you, Merry Christmas. And he's like, whatever. And we go on our way. Then, a couple weeks later, we're in another supermarket and there's some chick in the Santa suit. Cute chick in the Santa suit, ringing the bell. My kid's like, oh, you have any money? I got to reach in. And this time it's like a $5 bill. And then he like grabs the 5 and he goes running up and he puts it in the pot. Sex sells.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Even though like a 6-year-old, it works.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one thing that I think probably did get better was holiday travel. Like back in the days, you were like kind of just navigating yourself, hoping for the taxi, hoping for the train. Now, at least you have like your phone, which can coordinate all that stuff. And I think airlines have kind of gotten their act together a little bit more. And
that would be more your domain. You know me, I'm old school. It's like I didn't take my first flight until I was like in my 50s. And it's like I didn't, as far as the phone goes, I'm just starting to use the like the Google Nav and the maps and stuff on my own now, because usually that was like, my wife's domain.
I guess a lot of holiday decorating now is geared towards social media too, right? I mean, people want to do stuff. We've become a very showy society, and like you want to show your beautiful lights on your house and how,
like, so you can make these lights do all kinds of cool things, but it's like, why the hell should I got to use my phone now for my Christmas lights?
Well, everything, right? I mean, that's the way it is now, man. It's funny to think that there was actually a day when that wasn't the case, right? And like if you got dropped off at a bus stop, you had to get a taxi and figure it all out yourself instead of calling Uber or whatever, or control everything, your security my kid, he goes to school down south in New Orleans and he lost his phone. I mean, more like he smashed his phone by accident. And really? I thought he was going to have a meltdown because it's, the kids today, like they've never not had that, so if they have to kind of just get by as an organic, human, then it's a very big stressor for them, a very big struggle.
Oh yeah, but it's my wife and my sister are that way, where it's like sitting in a diner and it's like every 5 minutes they're checking their phone, and it's like
there's no need to have an awkward moment anymore. You could just pretend you're looking at your phone, and in the doctor's office to
my sister or my wife, they kind of get on my case about, I've been trying to call you. I'm like, I was outside. I left my phone inside.
You can never, ever be unavailable without your phone for a microsecond.
It's like, the only reason I have the phone, it's really
it's a convenience. It's not the Lord and Master.
It's like just in case, the transmission explodes in the car. It's like I can call AAA. It's not really, to me, a phone is like a tool. It's not like an accessory.
An accessory? You mean like it might as well be a pacemaker? It's like people can't live without it,
Yeah. I can see somebody, it's like, trying to charge their phone off of their pacemaker battery.
I gotta get a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing too that has changed is now you come from a fairly prosperous neighborhood. Maybe
what are you kidding? I'm living in the hood, yo. The hood.
Do you see a lot of ads for people put up your Christmas lights for you?
I do. That's a new thing this year. Like, we do Christmas lights. I guess that's a good gig for the landscapers, right?
I guess. I don't know. It was kind of like, if my father was getting taught, I remember it's like, that's the thing too. It's like you see all these Norman Rockwell things. It's like, the happy family decorating the house. Here's mom with the tray with the hot cocoa, and, the father standing there with his pipe with the big smile and the patches on his elbows.
Yes.
That was not that was not
your experience.
That was like me and my brother walking around on the roof of the garage, my father yelling at us to stop screwing around.
Morons,
Old out, it's like,
right. The reality. It was a lot closer to Christmas Vacation, right? In that regard, like the guy, remember that scene where the, Chevy Chase is outside. He's ready for the big moment to plug in his lights that he spent all day or weekend probably putting together. And, it didn't work. It was very disappointing.
That's one thing that has actually changed since we were kids, and for the better. Do you remember the old light sets? If one went out,
that was it. You were done.
Yep.
For the whole thing. Yeah. It would all go out.
With the little bulb testers. And these were like those midget bulbs, like the ones that looked like just the little...
they were smaller. They weren't those big full-size outdoor ones.
Thing. It wasn't like, you didn't even unscrew them. You'd have to pull them out somehow.
Right, with a clip or something. And they were these little...
I remember just sitting there, and you have Frank Sinatra on the radio. Oh my gosh, by golly, and it's like my father sitting there with the pitching with the tester. It's like...
It truly was a Christmas story. Yeah, and then you're done, because your whole tree is out, or half your tree. That's always a good look, right? Half the tree with lights and half not.
Yeah, everything would be all, when you're decorating it, everything's all perfect. Christmas Eve, everything's all perfect. It's like, something from Better Homes and Gardens. Christmas Day, when it's time to open up the presents, the old man plugs in the tree and it's like, oh shit, the top isn't what
do you use as a topper, a star or an angel, or that thing that you put right on the very top of the Christmas tree?
One of the glass blowers actually made it for me. It's if you remember the just like those points.
Remember you have an incredible stash of Christmas stuff.
Huh?
So in other words, you were saying before you didn't have a nice Christmas stash around your house.
Just because I have a nice tree top.
Why do you lie,
mean...
What's that?
I said, just because I have a nice tree top doesn't mean I decorate the whole place.
I don't know. I bet if I asked around, before you know it, you'd be having some lead tinsel in your drawer there, just by your elbow.
Actually, I do have lead tinsel.
I told you. Yeah.
Using it, it's sitting there.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, hey, it's a difference between having it and being so burnt out that you don't even put it up at Christmas.
Oh, stop.
Oh, I told you. Look at that. Oh, my God. I can't believe it.
Germany.
I really did not anticipate that being a real thing, but
Well, this
Interesting.
actually is not the lead stuff. The East Germans didn't do the lead stuff. The East Germans did. It's like an aluminum foil.
Don't eat it.
Yeah. Do you remember just like driving around just to look at other people's lights?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My brother-in-law, he would take us every year to Queens to this one particular street, and like everybody knocks their socks off. And there'd be lines and traffic problems and stuff because people were really into seeing it.
Guy over in I don't know if you're going to edit it out or not. There's a guy over in Farmingdale like that. It's like you would see the glow over the horizon of this guy's place. And I could finally get there. I could, what's kind of thing too is, who the hell would want to live across the street from this guy?
Yeah, exactly. It's what about the neighbors who have to deal with the crowds and the green glow in their bedroom and...
We got to go old school because they don't make them anymore. But yeah, they used to have, I forgot what they call it. They call it blow molds because that's the way they were made. Like, remember, it's like just the plastic light up Santas and snowmen and all that stuff that we used to have when we were kids. This guy would have like 20 snowmen on his second story, like all across the thing. He'd have like the Santa going down the chimney.
Like he's been planning for 6 months. Yeah.
Lights. Yeah, the guy actually...
There's a schematic somewhere.
Oh, yeah, the guy somehow... he turned his garage into like the Santa's workshop. He'd leave his car parked somewhere else, and it's like, he'd have all the mechanical elves sawing away in there. He'd take like his front windows, he'd box them out, turn them into something. And there's a bunch of... I enjoy Christmas despite, having to deal with it all the time. But you got to be like a special kind of nut when it's like, you have total strangers. You just like letting them roam around your property, like peeking in your windows and all this stuff.
And now photograph it and put it on social media a million times, Yeah.
And then you used to somehow rig up the hose. So it's like, he'd get the icicles and it's like...
That's crazy. So concluding thoughts, was Christmas better back in the 80s? Is it better today? What's the deal, Rufus?
I'm going to say it used to be better. I don't know if that's just tinged with nostalgia. It's what I'm looking for. Not innocence, but a certain amount of, we weren't seeing it through a parent's eyes. We were living it like, as teens and kids and whatever. Sometimes I do feel bad for my kid because it's like, I think back what we had. It's like,
So it sounds like what you're saying is that it was better in the old days because there was more of a sense of family and community. And today it's a bit less, personal. Yeah. Well, I think that was a pretty good, I can see on the clock that we're kind of running out of time here, but, that was a pretty good little talk about the 80s and Christmas stuff. And, on to the next topic. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and have a happy Christmas if you're watching this right before the actual holiday. If not, if you're watching in 6 months from now, happy next Christmas.
Christmas.
Yes.
So,
happy Christmas. All right. Geezer's out.